Hi, I'm Christian West. I'm a first-year SDM student, and it's been a great opportunity for me. My background's in software engineering and entrepreneurship. I started my first company, Meosphere, a number of years ago, and it was a wild success until it completely failed. And but it wasn't a complete failure for me. I learned a lot and gained some experience. And from the ashes of Meosphere, we built Lightning Kite, which was a software consulting and investment company. And that's Lightning Kite continues to move on today. But I stepped down just recently in order to fulfill the lifelong dream of getting a master's degree. So I came back to school, and so here I am. But it's my opportunity today to introduce Donna Levin. Donna, so I'm a father and an entrepreneur, and Donna is a co-founder of Carecom, and I don't know if you're familiar with the platform, but Care.com helps people like me, and among many other types of people out there. And so as a father and entrepreneur, Donna's definitely a role model in what she's been able to do. She received a bachelor's degree from Emerson College in marketing communications, and then she's gone on to get an MBA from Sloan here at MIT. And before Care.com, she was VP of Operations at UPromise, which is a platform that helps families save for college. And then while at Care.com, she's been VP of Operations and then VP of Public Policy, CSR, and Global Workplace. She now is also an entrepreneur in residence at the Martin Trust Center here at MIT and a lecturer at Sloan School. And if that's not enough, she does volunteer. And if I went through the list of all of the boards that she volunteers on and sits on, I don't think we'd save any room for her to talk. So suffice to say, she's very involved and is doing a lot. So with that, I give you Donna Levin.
It's interesting that we share something in common, which was my lifelong dream, was to also pursue my master's degree here at MIT. Part of the story that I wasn't going to share today, but now feel compelled to share, is that my career actually began with a connection to MIT. I come from a single parent family. My parents divorced when I was fairly young, and there was no savings for college. One of the things that I did, I always sort of considered myself one of the cool kids. I was in a marching band, debate team, and I liked to make computer games with my friends a long, long time ago when someone got their first computer. And we thought we were pretty cool, and unfortunately no one else did. But they had a clearer path to college than I did. And so while I was in school, working and hustling to make it work, many of them came here to MIT. And while I was working as an EA, one who was working over at University Park at MIT said, "What are you doing? You could be making so much more money to pay for school if you use your computer-related skills and just write simple shell scripts. You could be testing BIOS chips. You could be testing hardware." And that was the avenue for me to move forward. And because of that very first job that actually helped me afford college, it was really the start of my career in tech. So I will always be beholden to all things MIT, and I will warn you, I am a high-energy, hand-gesturing person. For those of you who have not had enough caffeine, we were talking a little bit earlier on setting the slide decks up on what was in the deck. You will find my marketing roots are coming clear today. I thought you guys might really love to see a lot of my early diagrams on how we design systems, how we improve the process. As I was showing my deck to my husband, he was like, "Are you speaking at 8 a.m.? I don't, like maybe it's really cool, but maybe people don't want to spend their time looking at this on a slide. So a lot of those slides have been pulled, but I'm right at the Martin Trust Center, so if you do want to see those slides after, we can. I'm going to focus more on the management portion of this conference and less on the engineering portion of this conference. So my Care.com story really begins at You Promise. Now that you know how I struggled to pay for college, You Promise, when I was asked to join that team, I was all in, 100% in. I believed in the mission when the founder told me it was all about saving the first dollar for the first child. I would be laser focused on that. And that translated to being there for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. And then we had our weekend parties because we were integrating a bunch of really old legacy systems. The premise of You Promise is that you can money for college through your everyday spending. So from groceries, to gas, to your mortgage, to your Happy Meal purchase, all of those companies, instead of using the money for marketing spend, they'll give you a percentage back. So we were responsible for figuring out how do we track all of that information, how do we integrate that into our system, and how do we encourage you to move that money into a 529 account so you could save. I was beyond happy there. And then something even better happened. I got pregnant. As one who thought they would never get married and have a family, and the time that I finally decided that that path was for me, my first child was my 5-year project, filled with a lot of heartache, suffering, and sorrow. Everybody was delighted. Sheila Marcello, who had her first child while she was still in college, who knew my story, we were good friends, she gave me a baby shower right after my first trimester. So I was completely surprised. And then in my 3rd trimester, I ended up on bed rest. I will never forget, we were having this intense debate about a system, and I was having such discomfort in my back, and I was determined, no, we're gonna get through this. Everyone's here. We're gonna figure out what we're doing. We have all these architects in the room. We have the CEO in the room. We will get through this meeting. And I remember pulling over in the car, not really understanding why my back hurt so bad, until I got home and explained to my husband that I wasn't feeling well. And he's like, maybe we should go because it seems like this pain in your back is happening every few minutes. And I was still focused on the problem that I was trying to solve at work with my team. Sure enough, they put me on bed rest. They finally had to take my computer away because, of course, everything was going to work out. It was going to be just fine, but we were also still trying to save the first dollar for the first child, and we're at a point where it was time to think about how we were going to move people's money to this 529 account. Fast forward, that's my husband. We were so young back then. And this is my son, Miles. When he was born, it was probably one of the most joyous occasions. I had members of my team showing up. The CEO of You Promise at the time wrote me a note about what it meant to be a parent. And Rosa, who in this picture, you'll never believe it, is over 90, who knew of the struggle that we had to have our child, made a point to be there for his baby naming. And it was a massive celebration. Pure joy. Well, while I've been on bed rest, I had a chance to put everything in order. I wasn't just thinking about my team, I was thinking about my household, how it was gonna run, because I was gonna have my child, I was gonna run my house, I was going back to work. And then at 11 weeks, he had a seizure-like episode. And as a new parent, at least me as a new parent, I called my doctor a lot. I remember the first time we called the doctor, was just like, okay, so we're here. My mother-in-law has left. The baby's dry, the baby's crying. My husband's like, give me the phone. And, and he's explaining all this stuff to the doctor, and the doctor finally said, do you have scotch? He's like, yes, we do have scotch. He was like, you drink a glass of scotch. It's a baby. Babies cry. It's gonna be fine. It's like, okay. And so now I call the doctor again, thinking like, okay, we're gonna get the scotch story. And hey, I fed the baby. This is what happened. To say, okay, Donna, something's not right. Here's what I need you to do. Just take a deep breath. It's gonna be fine. I'm calling Children's Hospital. I need you to go to the Children's Hospital, and they're gonna be waiting for you. The initial tests in my child were inconclusive. And that started our caregiving journey. That while we were trying to figure out why he had that seizure-like episode and what was going on, he was going to need special care. Daycare was no longer an option, and we were trusting no one with our bundle of joy. Grandparents helped out. My husband's a therapist. He left his job. He stayed home because I had to go back to the tech company to all of our benefits to afford everything. And we were two ships passing in the night for the next 3 years while we worked it out. My son is fine today. We figured out what's going on. He's a highly opinionated tween who is well over my size right now, and is doing just fine because of the great care he received in those early years of his life. Which leads me to Care.com. My story is not unique. It may be on the extreme, but almost everyone has a caregiving story. I mentioned Sheila Marcello. She was able to throw me that baby shower and take it really serious and be there because her life dream was to become a lawyer. She went to private school. She was super driven. Left her private school, went to Mount Holyoke, and lo and behold, got pregnant her sophomore year. She had the baby. She got married. She's still married. But it was really hard. And then when her parents said, you know what, you got into Harvard, we'll help pay for it, she got pregnant again. And so now the two of us are working at You Promise. She's trying to figure out how she's caring for her two kids and doing the daycare dash, and finally just says, you know what, Dee, I can't do it alone. Like, I need help. Her parents came in from the Philippines to help, and while they were here, her father had a heart attack and fell down the stairs holding her baby. We're both at a tech company, and we were going through the yellow pages trying to make it work. And then we asked the question, why? Why isn't there a better system for people like all of us who have to work to make a living, and we spend part of our day worried about who's really caring for our loved ones and caring for our children? So fast forward, You Promise. I didn't actually show the logo because we were acquired by Sallie Mae, and our mission changed ever so slightly. And thinking about what to do next, when she said, hey, what do you think if you put, and we always brainstormed ideas, what if we could really go solve this problem and go figure out why there's not a better way to find care? So that was the start of Care.com. That was in 2007. Care.com helps people across the lifespan, from child care to senior care and everything in between. We were very fortunate early on that we knew we had the capital to start the company. We were able to pull in people from our past teams, and because we had come out of so many different tech companies, we able to stop before writing a single line of anything or designing any process to think about what kind of company we wanted to create. What was our mission? What did we stand for? How was it all really going to function? So the numbers on this side look really impressive, but that's definitely not how we started out. So launch day, my very first job at Care.com after setting up our infrastructure and hiring was that, okay, when we talked about the idea, I said it's a great idea, but if you take a look at our own stories, I didn't see my husband for 3 years because we were 2 ships passing in the night. I trusted no one with my child. Your parents came, so who would actually really use our service? So I was focused on how do we design a service that people would actually use? And starting early on with what's the problem to be solved and asking the question why and how, and spending a lot of time talking to people about their needs. Why do you look for a caregiver? What makes a great caregiver? What's a great care provider? And I concluded after all of that work that in order for us to have a single care seeker pay us, we had to have a bunch of high-quality caregivers. We did a cluster analysis that told us the cities to target. We came up with a model that told us how many caregivers we needed to have. We launched a product 2 months in advance to give me a chance to acquire a bunch of care seekers, and we were ready for day one. We knew that on day one, between family and friends alone, because of course our Excel models were spot on, we should have 50 people sign up. The team was watching the systems and watching all the reports, and we had our bagels after an all-nighter, and it was crickets. I think the less than 5 people who signed up, I'm sure one was my mom, Sheila's mom, and I think one was probably fraud. And we had our moment of, let's get back to our models and our conversation, our data. What possibly could be going wrong here? So, pulling back to design thinking, for every single part of our business, for marketing, it was constantly, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? What are all of our possible options? Let's just put them on the board. Let's go figure out which one we're gonna test, and how fast can we do this test? We changed so that instead of rolling out new features quickly, we rolled out a testing platform, not just so that we could do A/B testing for our marketing team, but so that we could test hundreds of test cells to figure out what was the winner and to make sure we sent everyone through that user experience. We did the exact same thing with our call center. We didn't even have a call center back there. We couldn't afford a call center. So we were always trying to figure out, okay, with our limited resources and what we have, what can we do for our members to delight them? We tested all kinds of things. I remember one of the things we were most excited about was a welcome call. Isn't it great if someone signs up for our service and then we call them? No. People were using the internet because they did not want to talk to us. That didn't go over so well. We thought, you know what? Everybody wants a reference. We pitched this idea. Okay, references are really important in caregiving. We're going to do recorded references. We're going to have people give us their references in advance. We're going to take the most commonly answered questions. We're going to call. We're going to record that information, and we're going to go put it online. We presented this at our board meeting. I think one of the first callers had a British accent. Our board loved recorded references. Investors loved recorded references. Nobody else loved recorded references. It was expensive, it was kludgy, it was a tough system, but this process continued and continued and continued for every single thing that we were doing until we figured out our product market fit. When we thought about scaling the business, we were very fortunate that here in Boston, I think Hub Week is going to release a report later today, but it really highlights that Boston has created this community and this ecosystem where if you're in it, people really want to support you. We had so many CEOs give of their time to come and sit with our very small team and share their lessons on, you know what, this is our dark moment. You mentioned everything's great until it fails. For us, it was everything feels like failure until it's great. Everything really felt like failure for a very long time as we were thinking through how to scale. But through that process, we realized that one size doesn't fit all. So the first thing for scaling our business is that we very quickly realized, similar to our first model, that we were not ready to turn on the gas to our business until our numbers were highly predictable and our models were solid. Seems like mom and apple pie, but actually 74% of businesses fail from premature scale. From that very simple that there's so much pressure to grow faster and to be bigger that you do it too fast and you start to burn through your cash. The second thing that we encountered on trying to scale the business is that we were fortunate when we started, by the time we started Care.com, 60% of the people who joined our team we had worked with before. We hired some fantastic, go get it done generalists. One of our first hires had a master's in English and a master's in mathematics. She could do anything. Throw it at her, it's like, yeah, I can do that model. I'll go get that done. I can write that copy. I will go get it done. She's still with the company today. She's running our Berlin office. Everybody could wear so many different hats, and when it was time to scale, we realized that we needed a specialist, which introduced a whole new array of challenges because not everyone could scale that way. One of the things, have you guys who are here had a chance to take this awesome course offered at MIT? Anyone? Favorite of all time. One of the things that we quickly figured out related to scale was it was important to understand not just yourself, but also your team. So this model really talks about really leaping to the next curve on that you have folks who, any project goes to the discovery phase to develop, you actually deliver it, and that at a certain point, the value starts to erode and you have to move on to the next market or you have to iterate. But since companies are made of people, that people play in different sandboxes. Some people call it the nail it phase people who love being in this test and iterate, test and iterate, test and iterate. It's not failure, it's learning. What did we learn? Let's keep trying. Let's go make something happen. That you just love bringing something to life. And you have other folks who enjoy actually refining the product and making it better and getting all those features out and getting the feedback and really optimizing. I heard Andy Miller, who he was also a serial entrepreneur, and he started the InnoLoft at Constant Contact. He described it as being on a roller coaster. How many of you love being on a roller coaster? When you get off the roller coaster, you want to do it again? How many would be happy to sort of stand by and like cheer everybody else who wants to get on the roller coaster? All right, who will do it just once and be done with it just to say you did it? Perfect. Companies are exactly the same way. And the notion was that you really need to figure out on your team who's the person who wants to pretty much get on what can be a crazy train and do the ups and downs, have those sheer moments of terror, come out at the end and go like, whoa, that was a rush. We survived, we did it, let's go do it again. Who are those people on your team who see like, wow, this thing looks sort of risky. I'm happy to support it, but don't put me all in. I have a coworker now who says, you know what, Donna, I'm happy to help you, but please don't put me in a position where I can fail. It's like, okay, all right, we won't do that. There's a role that you can play here. As you scale, you need to figure out where do people on your team fit and what makes most sense for them, but also where do you personally thrive? Just based on where my hand went up, I thrive here. I really enjoy the discovery, the develop phase. So what are some of the plus sides of that? You have a new project and there's a brick wall that needs to run in it, I'm all in. Let's go take the wall down. Once we figure out how to take the wall, don't ask me to stay on the other side of the wall. I am bored. It's like, okay, well that's done. What are we gonna do next? Those people are great at starting every new thing that you need. New business unit, new thing, low budget, 2 people, they're your Skunks Works team. It took some learning, and it's really great to go through the process with your team to explain your logic, because often the people who go through the discover and develop phase, when you say, hey, nice job, I'm gonna reassign you, it's like, did I fail? Like, what happened? What do you mean you're reassigning me? Why am I gonna go work on this new thing that has no budget? It's like, you're gonna go work on the new thing that has no budget because we know that's where you excel. And it was really important to communicate those messages clearly and to make sure that everyone, including our leaders, were self-aware to know where they stood. So we figured this all out. We scaled. We grew outside the US. We moved into Canada. And when we went into Berlin, we loved our models, still love models on where we should go next and why, and what are those care types. We found ourselves there already. There was a company. We acquired that company. We realized that there was an opportunity for payments to make things simple. We purchased a company that could provide that service, and we continued to grow and scale. That should be the end of this story, and I'm gonna speed up because I'm looking at the clock. But it wasn't the end of the story. Because part of always asking the question why and listening to both sides of your members, all along we kept receiving this consistent feedback. I love your service, care is just so expensive. And with a name like Care.com, it's like I said, our subscription price, because it doesn't appear to be our subscription price. We're a fraction of what you would pay an agency. Our workplace model, it's a win for everyone. Why is everyone constantly talking about care is so expensive? Both sides of the market had challenges. So for parents, 50% of the workforce is female. 50% of the workforce who may have had caregiving responsibility is also pressed on time and trying to figure it out. 4, that's the lonely place that we in the US stand by not having paid parental leave. We're only one of 4 developed nations where it's not actually mandated, which actually puts parents in a bind, where few employers actually offer this, and those that do, people are often afraid to take the leave for fear of retaliation. We just released a report on the cost of care. Depending on what part of the country that you live in, it could be anywhere from 10% to 18% of your annual income. And if you're doing full-time daycare in 26 states, in 26 states, you're gonna pay more for your child to go to daycare than you would for in-state tuition. This is why our members were giving us feedback on care is expensive. So now it was, well, what do we do with this information? And what is our obligation? We're a company. But you're a company now with 20 million members who are reaching out and saying, hey, Care.com, care is expensive. What's your stance on that? What are you doing for your employees? Well, of course, our mission was to be there for our members, for our employees, and for our partners. So yes, we had paid leave and all kinds of great benefits, but many of our members did not. On the care provider side, there's a sort of an illusion that you get when you're in a great college or university town like Boston, that everyone providing care is college age. That's what my nieces did. They went to school in Atlanta. When they wanted some downtime, it's like, hey, I'm gonna work as a babysitter this summer. But over 50% of the care providers are actually parents. They actually have caregiving responsibility, and they're providing care so they can help someone else. One of the other challenges on continuing to ask the question why that we're taught in design thinking is that for all the jobs, if it's viewed as women's work, which 75% of care providers tend to be women, no matter if you're high paid, low paid, medium wage, the pay is always lower. And then we learned that in 1938, the labor protections that went in place to ensure that all of us have a good workplace, that we understand our benefits, we understand our responsibilities, that we're going to get a minimum wage, there was a carve out for caregivers. It didn't apply to caregivers. They didn't get the same protections that we all enjoy and expect from any employer before we take a job. So that's when we set out to do something about it, and I transitioned from being in charge of operations to being in charge of policy and our global workplace solutions. And it started with discussion and led to action. For parents, we advocated for paid leave. For parents and for care providers, we advocated for an increase and continue to advocate for an increase in the tax credit. For care providers, we partnered with the National Domestic Workers Alliance and really started going state by state to advocate for domestic workers' bills of rights. The Bill of Rights, all it is saying that domestic workers deserve the same protections that we all have. And I'm pleased to report that it's passed in over 6 states, and they're still going strong. We worked with a group called Hand in Hand to implement a fair care pledge. One of the challenges in caregiving is that the care recipient or the care provider is so much like a part of your family, you don't even realize that you're an employer. I can tell you with my babysitter, my date night sitter, I didn't think that I was an employer. I thought I had someone coming in occasionally who could help out. I didn't realize an employer until I had a nanny. But actually, if someone's providing, over a $1,600 threshold of care services in your home, you are an employer. So to raise awareness to this issue, we partnered around the Fair Care Pledge that we pushed out to our members. Basically, it's aspirational. It says that I recognize that my home is somebody's workplace. They do deserve to understand what's their job, what they're actually going to be paid, and I'm going to try and make it a livable wage. MIT has a great living wage calculator. And I'm gonna try and hold on to their job. So many times that we don't realize if we stay home with our sick child and tell our caregiver they don't need to come, that our caregiver may not be able to feed their family that week. One of the other things that we did, and really advocating for policy changes, we gave of our time and of our funding. We joined, the governor's task force on working families to come up with interventions on how do we help employers. Not every employer can afford to give everyone paid leave, to hold someone's job. What can they do, and how do we make the most of what they're able to do? And just today, for really the past year, we've been working with a number of different organizations to really collect data on cost, quality, and availability of care, because it's lopsided in this country, and it's lopsided globally, but we're starting in the US. So while I'm here, Sheila, Anne-Marie Slaughter, Aijin Pu, they're in DC today releasing our Care Index to try and elevate the conversation on who really cares in America and what can we do about it. So we are fortunate. I remember the day that we went public. It was a surreal experience for me. I remember my sister, who came down for the event, talked about one of my favorite places in the world. One of my favorite places in the world happens to be this parking lot on the south side of Chicago that I played with and paid in for years, saying like, wow, you've come a really long way from this parking lot. We thought going public was going to be a fantastic opportunity to talk about who really cares in America, the growth of our business, our laser focused on testing and iterating, and that wasn't the story at all. So much of the story went back to the amount of capital that we had raised to drive the business. Not because it was a lot in the grand scheme of things, but more about who it was. What we didn't realize while we were doing all of this is that we represented a group of non-traditional entrepreneurs. When you look at any of you watch Silicon Valley? All right, I have to admit, I just started watching Silicon Valley, and the image of like the four quirky, sort of nerdy hipster guys hanging out, drinking beer, coding, creating something great, getting some funding, and then trying to figure out how to sell it, that is the image of an entrepreneur. So now when you say we have this immigrant Filipino woman, this immigrant Asian woman, this African American female, and then this white male who spent most of his time in Greece, it became a story on, wow, of all the billions of dollars in capital that go into startups, less than 10% go to female-led businesses. Of the public companies, less than 3% have a female CEO. And if you're talking about capital and access to capital for women of color, it's 0.2%, which rounds up to 0. That was the story. So what's my new opportunity that I am so excited about? Since I had already said, you know what, I want to go back to MIT. I want to actually be a student there as opposed to working there. I want to get my master's degree. And I want to go after this problem because I have the question, why? Why is it this way? So I'm still in the discovery phase, but I have a bunch of other like-minded people who are saying, okay, this is our next problem that we need to solve. Thank you.